Hello! In this video we are going to take a brief look at Robert Nozick's experience machine, which is essentially a way in which Nozick objects to utilitarianism by focusing, in fact, on the role of experience in moral decision making. Now, the question is pleasure everything? If you're a signed up act utilitarian, then generally speaking, you kind of think that it is, because the criterion for saying that an act is morally right is if it produces greatest aggregate happiness and simultaneously minimizes pain. All right? And so from a moral point of view, an act utilitarian would basically say, yeah, morally speaking, pleasure is everything. Now, Nozick asks us to imagine a machine that could give us whatever desirable or pleasurable experiences we could want. Neuroscientists have figured out a way to stimulate your brain to induce pleasurable experiences that you could not distinguish from those in real life. Okay, so it's a really, really good simulation. All right, and this kind of way of thinking is not dissimilar to the idea of perhaps putting a happy drug in the water supply to make us permanently happy. Now, Nozick's experience machine thought experiment is designed to challenge this idea that pleasure is everything. All right? And he starts by saying, if pleasure were the only intrinsic value, was the ultimate fundamental value, people would have an overriding reason to be hooked up to such an experience machine, which would produce happy sensations. All right? And he puts the argument as follows. He says, look, if experiencing as much pleasure as we can is all that matters to us, then if we will experience more pleasure by doing X than by doing Y, we have no reason to do Y rather than X. Premise 2. We will experience more pleasure if we plug into the experience machine X than if we do not plug into the experience machine Y. So the conclusion is, if all that matters to us is that we experience as much pleasure as we can, then we have no reason not to plug into the experience machine. But we do have reason not to plug into the experience machine. For example, we have the need for authenticity and freedom. We want to know that our happiness is genuine, that there are genuine reasons why we are happy, and we want the freedom to choose. If you are permanently happy, then there's a sense also in which your free will has been eroded, because you can't become unhappy in relation to certain circumstances, for example. Right? So premise 3 is that we have reason not to plug into the experience machine, for example, the need for authenticity, and therefore the conclusion is experiencing as much pleasure as we can is not all that matters to us. All right? So that is Nozick's entire argument. Right? In the first instance, he sort of goes with this idea that if experiencing as much pleasure as we can is all that matters, then why wouldn't we plug into the experience machine? But of course, pleasure is not all that matters. All right? And so this in itself is enough to show that utilitarianism is not the complete sort of moral package in terms of a theory. So Nozick provides 3 reasons not to plug into the machine. All right, we want to have the experience of doing certain things, right? And we want to actually do them. All right? We don't want just to experience them and not having done them. So this is the authenticity point that I was talking about. All right? And he says it's only because we first want to do the actions that we want the experience of doing them. All right? So there is this sense of authenticity and sincerity. So if you're just someone who is floating in a tank of chemicals, if your brain in a vat, for example, right, there's no actual contact with a deeper reality, even though the experience can be simulated. Now that sounds like the worst kind of deception, doesn't it? Right? Being led to believe that you are in touch with a deeper reality, but actually the whole thing is just a simulation. All right? So again, there's this notion of authenticity in there. That Nozick thinks would be lacking if we were just in a machine that made us happy all the time, right? So it shows that there is more to life than pleasure and happiness as such. There are other things as well, such as authenticity. Okay. So here are some questions for you, and just think about write down some answers to these questions. Which would you prefer? An experience being given to you through manipulation, an experience that is authentic, right? And explain why these matter, right? Whatever answer you choose, right? Explain why it matters. Finally, in your own words, explain Nozick's experience machine and explain the implications of being hooked up to that machine in terms of meaning in your own life. Right? Do you think it's okay? Or are there good reasons why you wouldn't want that to happen? And how can that be directed as an argument against utilitarianism? Okay, that's it for this video.